There is a quiet truth most people never say out loud. During the day, you survive. But at night, you feel. The day keeps you busy. Responsibilities, conversations, noise, movement. You answer messages, fulfill roles, push forward even when your heart feels heavy. But when the lights go off and the world slows down, something changes. Thoughts you managed to ignore begin to surface. Worries you kept buried find their voice. Questions you didn't have time for suddenly sit beside you in the dark. Have you noticed that? How certain emotions wait patiently for the night? Why clarity sometimes comes only when you're alone with your thoughts? Ibn Arabi teaches that the night is not merely a time on the clock. It is a state where the veils of distraction thin. What the day allows you to hide, the night gently reveals, not to harm you, but to show you what needs attention. This is why Tahajjud belongs to the night. Not because it is harder, not because it is rare, but because the night meets you when you are most honest. You may lie in bed feeling physically exhausted, yet mentally awake. Your body wants rest, but your heart feels restless. Something feels unfinished. Something inside you wants to speak, but there are no words. This is often when people assume something is wrong with them. They scroll their phones, distract themselves, or force sleep. But what if this restlessness is not a flaw? What if it is an invitation? Ibn Arabi reminds us that Allah does not call the loud heart first. He calls the softened one, the heart that has been worn down by effort, patience, disappointment, and quiet hope. The heart that has tried everything it knows and now feels empty of answers. That feeling of being emotionally awake at night is not weakness, it is readiness. During the day, you are armored, you perform strength, you speak carefully, you manage impressions. Even in worship, you may feel rushed or distracted, but the night removes the audience. No one is watching, no one is waiting, no one expects anything from you. So the heart relaxes. And when the heart relaxes, it becomes truthful. Have you ever noticed how your most sincere thoughts appear when you're alone at night? Why regrets feel sharper, but so does longing? Why the desire to turn to Allah feels purer, less forced? This is where Tahajjud truly begins, not on the prayer mat, but in this inner exposure. Ibn Arabi teaches that Allah does not seek the polished version of you in the night. He seeks the real one, the version that is tired of pretending to be fine, the version that is quietly asking, "Is there more than this?" The version that does not need eloquence, only closeness. The night calls you because it strips away illusion. In that silence, you begin to sense something subtle, a pull that cannot be explained logically, a desire not for answers but for presence, not for solutions but for nearness. This is why Tahajjud feels different from other prayers. It is not initiated by obligation, it is initiated by longing. And longing, Ibn Arabi says, is one of the strongest signs of divine attention. Not everyone feels this pull. Many sleep peacefully through the night. Their hearts are calm, satisfied, settled. But some people wake with a strange heaviness, or they lie awake staring at the ceiling, or they wake briefly, check the time, and feel an unexplained awareness. If that has ever been you, pause for a moment. Could it be that the night is not disturbing you, but calling you? Could it be that what you feel as restlessness is actually readiness? Could it be that Allah is preparing your heart before you ever stand? Tahajjud does not begin with movement. It begins with recognition. And once the heart recognizes the call, the rest slowly follows. Most people believe Tahajjud begins when your feet touch the floor. Ibn Arabi teaches something quieter and far more merciful. Tahajjud begins the moment your heart decides. Not when you stand, not when you make wudu, but when sometime before sleep a thought passes through you. Tonight I want to rise for Allah. That single decision, often fragile, often uncertain, is already worship. Think about how many times you've tried. You set an alarm with sincerity, whispering to yourself that tonight will be different. You fall asleep with hope in your chest, only to wake up to the sun instead of the darkness. Guilt follows, disappointment. You tell yourself you failed again. But Ibn Arabi dismantles this harsh inner judgment. He teaches that Allah does not measure effort the way humans do. He does not look only at results. He looks at direction, at desire, at the movement of the heart before the movement of the body. If your heart intended to rise, the angels record that intention as an act of devotion, even if sleep overtook you. Why would Allah do that? Because tahajjud is not about discipline alone. It is about relationship. And in relationships, intention matters as much as action. Have you ever noticed how heavy it feels when you want something sincerely, but your body feels unable to follow? Have you felt that frustration, loving Allah yet feeling weak? Why do you think Allah, who created your weakness, would punish you for it? Ibn Arabi explains that intention is the seed of all spiritual movement. Before prayer shapes the body, intention shapes the soul, and Allah nurtures the seed long before the fruit appears. This understanding changes everything. It removes the fear of failure. It softens the heart instead of hardening it. It teaches you that tahajjud is not built in a single night, but grown over many gentle attempts. The night itself becomes a witness to your sincerity. Some nights you will rise. Some nights you will not. But every night your heart leans toward Allah, something inside you is being written. This is why Ibn Arabi says that tahajjud is not a habit you force. It is a relationship you develop. Relationships grow through persistence, not perfection. Through returning again and again, even after disappointment. Have you noticed how the nights you fail still feel different from nights you never intended? How there is still a softness in the heart, even in failure. Could that softness itself be a sign of acceptance? When the heart intends tahajjud, even sleep becomes meaningful. The rest you take is no longer escape, it becomes preparation. The body recovers while the soul stays oriented toward its Lord. This is also why tahajjud feels heavy at first. The body resists because it is learning a new rhythm. The ego resists because it dislikes surrender. The mind resists because it prefers control. But intention begins the quiet reordering of priorities. Over time, the resistance softens. Ibn Arabi teaches that Allah does not call the servant who never turns toward him. He calls the one who keeps returning, even imperfectly. So if you have tried before and failed, understand this clearly. You were not rejected. You were not unworthy. You were practicing sincerity. The intention to rise is Allah teaching your heart how to lean. And once that leaning becomes familiar, the body begins to follow naturally, not through force, but through willingness. Tahajjud grows like this, slowly, gently, patiently. First, the heart stands. Then one night, the body does too. And when that happens, when intention finally turns into movement, you will understand why Ibn Arabi says the night reveals what the day hides. Because what rises first is never the body. It is the heart. There is a moment in tahajjud that feels quietly exposing. It is the moment you stand. Not because standing is physically difficult, but because there is nowhere to hide. During the day, you stand among people. You are seen, noticed, acknowledged. Even in prayer, there is awareness of time, of others around you, of the world moving beyond the walls. But at night, when you rise for tahajjud, you stand alone. The room is still. The air is heavy with silence. The floor feels cold beneath your feet. And in that stillness, something becomes clear. Ibn Arabi teaches that how you stand before Allah in darkness reveals who you truly are. When no one is watching, when there is no praise to gain and no role to perform, the soul shows its real condition. Have you ever noticed how different your posture feels at night? How the body feels slower, yet the heart more alert? Why does standing in tahajjud feel heavier, but somehow more sincere? This is because qiyam at night is not an act of endurance, it is an act of presence. You are not standing to be seen. You are not standing to prove anything. You are standing because you were called. Ibn Arabi reminds us that Allah does not place a burden on the servant in Tahajjud. He offers an opening, and openings require stillness, not force. This is why Tahajjud does not have a fixed number of rakāh letter 2 bf a makron t. The wisdom behind this freedom is subtle. Allah is not counting how long you stand. He is looking at how present you are. 2 rakāh letter 2 bf a makron t prayed with full awareness can weigh more than many prayed with a wandering heart. Have you ever prayed briefly at night and felt more connected than during a long daytime prayer? Why does a short tahajjud sometimes feel deeper than extended worship in the day? Because at night, your standing is unguarded. There is no rush to finish, no pressure to perform, no fear of judgment. The heart stands naked before its Lord. Ibn Arabi describes qiyam as the moment the servant admits dependence. Standing in the darkness, you realize how small you are, how tired, how limited, and strangely, this realization does not weaken you, it steadies you. When you say Allahu Akbar in Tahajjud, you are not announcing strength. You are acknowledging scale. You are placing your worries, your fears, your unfinished struggles back into their proper size. The body may tremble slightly, the voice may be quiet, the recitation may be simple, but the heart in that moment is upright. This is why the first moments of standing often feel awkward. Your thoughts wander, your body resists, your mind tries to return to sleep. But Ibn Arabi teaches that this resistance is not rejection, it is transition. You are crossing from the noise of the world into the silence of presence. And if you stay just a little longer, something shifts. The standing becomes easier. The heart settles. The silence begins to feel supportive rather than heavy. You start to sense that Allah is not watching you stand. He is receiving you. This is the secret of qiyam at night. It is not about how long you remain standing, but about who you become while standing. A servant without performance, a heart without armor, a soul willing to be seen. And once you have stood like this, truly stood, the body naturally bows, not from obligation but from understanding. Because after standing in such honesty, the soul knows it cannot remain upright for long. It must bow. When you begin moving through the rakāh letter 2 bf a makron t of Tahajjud, something subtle unfolds inside you. On the surface, it looks like repetition, standing, bowing, prostrating, rising again. But Ibn Arabi teaches that nothing in sincere worship repeats without purpose. Each movement carries a different effect on the heart. This is why Tahajjud never feels the same from one rakāh letter 2 bf, a h to the next. Have you noticed how the first rakāh letter 2 bf, a h often feels heavy? How the mind resists, pulling you back towards sleep or distraction? Why clarity doesn't arrive immediately, but gradually? The first rakāh letter 2 bf a h, Ibn Arabi explains, is where the heart begins to soften. You arrive carrying the weight of the day, unfinished conversations, quiet worries, lingering emotions. The body is present, but the heart is still holding on. That heaviness is not failure, it is exposure. The night is showing you what you brought with you. As you bow and prostrate, the heart begins to loosen its grip. The second rakāh letter 2 bf a h feels different. Thoughts slow down. The noise inside becomes less aggressive. What felt urgent moments ago no longer demands your attention. This is the rakāh letter 2 bf a h where the mind starts to clear, not because you forced it to, but because it finally feels safe enough to rest. Have you felt that shift? The moment when your breathing steadies and the prayer stops feeling rushed. Ibn Arabi teaches that additional rakāh letter 2 bf a makron t are not about increasing numbers. They are about deepening surrender. Each one removes a layer of tension, of fear, of control. What remains is not emptiness but simplicity. This is why some nights you feel satisfied after 2 rakʿah letter 2 bf a makron t, while other nights you feel pulled to continue. Tahajjud responds to your inner state, not to a formula. Allah does not ask you to exceed yourself. He invites you to listen. Real life reflects this wisdom. Think about how clarity often comes only after patience, how emotional relief arrives only after you allow yourself to feel, how peace follows surrender, not struggle. The rakʿah letter 2 bf a makron t of Tahajjud follow the same rhythm. The first reveals. The second calms. The ones that follow cleanse. Ibn Arabi compares this process to washing something delicate. You do not scrub harshly. You rinse gently again and again until what remains is clean. The soul responds the same way. Force hardens it. Gentleness purifies it. Have you noticed how, after a few rakʿah letter 2 bf a makron t, your du letter 2 bf a makron letter 2 be changes? How your words become fewer but more honest. Why the need to explain disappears. This is because the rakʿah letter 2 bf a makron t have done their work. They have quieted the parts of you that wanted control, validation, or immediate answers. What remains is a heart willing to bow without argument. And when the heart reaches that state, the deepest movement of Tahajjud begins, not in standing, not in bowing, but in prostration. Because once the soul is softened and the mind is cleared, it finally becomes ready to fall completely. To place the forehead on the ground without resistance. To let go without fear. To speak without words. This is where the night reveals its greatest secret. There is a kind of silence that only exists when your forehead touches the ground at night. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of arrival. In daytime prayer, sujud is surrounded by movement, noise, awareness of time. Even when the body lowers, the mind often remains busy. But in Tahajjud, sujud feels different. The world is asleep. The room is still. Nothing is competing for your attention. And in that moment, something inside you finally lets go. Ibn Arabi teaches that sujud is not simply the lowest physical position of the body. It is the lowest point of the ego. When you place your forehead on the ground in the darkness, you are not just lowering yourself. You are releasing what has been holding you upright all day. Have you noticed how quickly thoughts fall away in night sujud? How worries that felt heavy moments earlier suddenly feel distant. Why emotions you didn't plan to feel begin to surface. This is because the night removes the need to explain yourself. There is no one watching, no one listening, no one waiting for you to finish. So the heart becomes honest in a way it rarely is. In night sujud, fears do not need to be named. Regrets do not need to be justified. Longings do not need to be organized into words. They are simply placed before Allah as they are. Ibn Arabi explains that this is why sujud at night carries a depth that cannot be found in any other moment of worship. During the day, the soul is guarded. At night, it is unarmed. And Allah meets the unarmed heart with gentleness. This is often when tears appear without warning, not dramatic tears, not planned ones, just a quiet release that surprises even you. You may not know what you are crying for. You may not feel overwhelming sadness, and yet the tears come. Have you ever wondered why? Because sujud at night allows the soul to speak without language. The tears are not a breakdown. They are a confession without words, a sign that something buried has finally been given permission to surface. Ibn Arabi says that in sujud, the servant becomes like a child again, needy, honest, unfiltered. And Allah responds to that honesty, not with interrogation but with mercy. This is why lovers of Allah would remain in sujud for long moments in the night, not because they were chasing emotion, but because they felt held. In the darkness, with their forehead pressed to the earth, They discovered a closeness that daylight could never give. Your head is on the ground, but your soul is rising. The ego weakens. The fear softens. The need to control dissolves. Sujud becomes a meeting, not a movement. Ibn Arabi teaches that every second spent in night sujud lifts a weight you didn't know you were carrying. The burdens of comparison, expectation, regret, and self-judgment begin to loosen their grip. You are no longer trying to be strong. You are allowing yourself to be real. And in that reality, Allah draws near. This is why night sujud changes you, even when nothing around you changes. You rise with the same life, the same responsibilities, the same unanswered questions, but the heart feels lighter, less tight, less guarded. Because something has been placed down. And once the heart has been emptied in sujud, it becomes ready to ask, not from desperation, but from trust. This is where du letter 2bf, a makron letter 2be begins to change. There is a moment after sujud in tahajjud when the heart feels unusually open, not emotional in a dramatic way, but softened, less defended. This is the moment when du letter 2bf, a makron letter 2be begins to change. During the day, you often ask Allah with urgency. You explain your situation. You repeat your needs. You try to be clear, thorough, convincing. Your du letter 2bf, a makron letter 2be carries the weight of pressure. I need this to change. But Ibn Arabi teaches that du letter 2bf, a makron letter 2be, made in the night travels differently. Not because Allah hears better at night, but because the heart speaks more honestly. Have you noticed how your words become simpler in tahajjud? How long requests shrink into quiet whispers? Why sometimes you say nothing at all, yet feel understood? This is because night removes performance. There is no audience, no expectation, no role to fulfill. You are not trying to sound hopeful or strong. You are simply present. Ibn Arabi explains that Allah loves the du letter 2bf, a makron letter 2be that comes with sacrifice. And waking from sleep is a sacrifice written in sincerity, not struggle. You did not rise because it was easy. You rose because your need for Allah outweighed your need for comfort. That alone purifies the request. This is why du letter 2bf, a makron letter 2be in tahajjud often feels gentle rather than desperate. The heart is tired, unguarded, stripped of pride. It is no longer trying to control outcomes. It is asking with trust, not tension. Real life teaches the same lesson. Think about the difference between asking someone when you are anxious versus asking when you feel safe. The words may be similar, but the tone changes everything. In tahajjud, your heart finally feels safe enough to ask without fear. Have you ever finished a night du letter 2bf, a makron letter 2be, without certainty that your problem would be solved, yet felt strangely calm? Why does peace sometimes arrive before answers? Ibn Arabi teaches that du letter 2bf, a makron letter 2be, is not always answered by changing circumstances. Sometimes it is answered by changing the one who is asking. When the heart aligns with divine wisdom, the path begins to move quietly. You may not see the shift immediately. The door may not open overnight, but something begins in the unseen. Hearts soften, resistance weakens, paths adjust. What once felt blocked starts to feel lighter. This is not magic. It is alignment. Tahajjud does not force destiny. It prepares the heart to walk into it. This is why the du letter 2bf, a makron letter 2be of tahajjud is described as pure. It is untouched by showing off, impatience, or comparison. It rises clean, carried by sincerity rather than urgency. And even when words fail, the night accepts silence as a form of prayer. A quiet "Ya Allah" can carry more weight than long explanations. A tear can speak louder than a list of requests. Ibn Arabi reminds us that Allah knows what you need before you ask. Du letter 2bf a macron letter 2be is not for informing him. It is for aligning yourself. And when the heart reaches that alignment, another door opens, not outwardly but inwardly. Because some needs are not about solutions. They are about healing. And that healing often begins in the quiet after the Du letter 2bf, a macron letter 2be ends. There are pains you can talk about, and there are pains you cannot. During the day, you manage the first kind. You explain them to people, you name them. You receive advice, reassurance, sometimes comfort. But the second kind of pain lives deeper. It has no clear story, no clean beginning, no easy language. It shows up as heaviness in the chest, as sudden sadness without a reason, as quiet exhaustion you cannot sleep away. Ibn Arabi teaches that Tahajjud was created for this second kind of pain. Have you noticed how these feelings surface more strongly at night? Why certain memories return only when the world is quiet? Why the heart feels more exposed when the lights go out? During the day, you wear armor, responsibilities demand it, strength becomes necessary. You keep moving because stopping feels dangerous. But the night strips that armor away. And Allah does not call the armored heart to Tahajjud. He calls the honest one. Tahajjud is not a prayer for the composed. It is a prayer for the wounded. Ibn Arabi explains that when you rise at night, Allah is not inviting the version of you that appears capable. He is calling the one who is tired of carrying everything alone, the one who has reached the end of their explanations. This is why healing in Tahajjud is quiet. There is no dramatic release, no sudden erasing of the past, no instant transformation. Instead, something gentler happens. You stand and the heart begins to release what it has been holding too tightly. You bow and the pressure eases. You prostrate and the weight begins to shift, not disappear, but move. Have you ever risen from Tahajjud with the same problems, yet felt lighter? Why does anger soften afterward? Why does bitterness lose its edge? This is healing. Ibn Arabi describes it as spiritual surgery. The soul is treated in ways you do not fully understand. Knots loosen, hardness softens, cracks form not to break the heart but to let light enter. Healing does not always feel like relief. Sometimes it feels like clarity. Sometimes it feels like calm acceptance. Sometimes it feels like the ability to breathe again. Tahajjud heals because it gives the soul a safe place to fall apart. You do not need to explain anything to Allah. You do not need perfect words. You do not need to know what hurts. Standing is enough. Being present is enough. Placing your forehead on the ground is enough. Because sometimes the soul does not need answers. It needs permission. Permission to be weak. Permission to be unsure. Permission to rest in divine presence. Ibn Arabi teaches that the heart has places no human conversation can reach, no advice can touch, no distraction can numb. Tahajjud reaches those places, not by force but by mercy. This is why healing continues after the prayer ends. You sleep differently. You wake calmer. You react with less sharpness. What once felt unbearable becomes manageable. Not because the pain vanished, but because it no longer owns you. And once the heart begins to heal, another realization follows, one that changes how you see yourself entirely. You are not unseen in this process. You are remembered. And in the unseen, that remembrance carries honor. There is a quiet fear many people carry but rarely admit. The fear of being unseen. During the day, effort goes unnoticed. Sacrifice feels unacknowledged. You give, endure, and remain patient, yet feel invisible. People may overlook your struggles, misunderstand your silence, or measure your worth by outcomes you cannot control. Ibn Arabi teaches that Tahajjud answers this fear in a way the world never can. He explains that the servants who rise at night are not just praying. They are being mentioned, not their achievements, not their status, their names. In the darkness, when no one sees you stand, when no one praises your effort, Allah honors you in the unseen. Angels take notice, not because of how long you prayed, but because of why you rose. Have you ever felt forgotten during the day, yet strangely dignified after a night prayer? Why does tahajjud leave a trace of quiet confidence? Why does the heart feel steadier, even without external validation? Because recognition has already occurred, just not in the place you expected. Ibn Arabi speaks of a group known as the people of the night. They are not defined by perfection, knowledge, or fame. They are defined by sincerity. Their hearts move toward Allah when the world turns away. Every time you rise for tahajjud, even briefly, you are counted among them. Imagine that for a moment. While you stand alone in a quiet room, angels are witnessing something the world will never see. Your tired voice saying Allahu Akbar echoes beyond the walls. Your sujud, which felt small to you, is seen as immense in the unseen. The angels do not measure greatness the way humans do. They do not care about success, appearance, or recognition. They look for hearts that are alive, hearts that choose Allah when no one is watching. This is why Ibn Arabi says the one who prays at night is never unknown, even if the world forgets them. During the day you may feel overlooked. At night you are remembered. This remembrance changes something inside you, not pride, but stability, not ego, but worth. You begin to understand that your value is not tied to how visible your efforts are. Some of the most meaningful actions are meant to remain hidden. Have you noticed how tahajjud slowly dissolves the need for approval? Why comparison loses its grip? Why the heart feels less dependent on being seen? Because the soul has already been acknowledged where it matters most. Ibn Arabi teaches that even a single sincere rakʿah letter 2 bf a h prayed at night can elevate a servant. You do not need to be consistent. You do not need to be flawless. You only need to show up with honesty. And once you understand this, a deeper truth becomes clear. Some doors in life do not open through effort alone. They open through surrender. And many of those doors are doors of the night. Which is why tahajjud does more than heal and honor you. It quietly prepares destiny itself to move. There is a truth Ibn Arabi reveals that changes how you understand tahajjud forever. You do not wake yourself for tahajjud. Allah wakes you. You may set alarms. You may plan. You may promise yourself that tonight will be different. But the nights when your eyes open without effort, when the room feels still, the air quiet, and your heart strangely alert, those nights are not accidental. Have you ever woken up at 2 or 3 in the morning without knowing why? Have you felt that subtle awareness? That pull before your mind could explain it? What if that moment was not interruption, but invitation? Ibn Arabi teaches that when Allah loves a servant, He gives them 2 gifts, the desire to wake and the strength to stand. And neither comes from willpower alone. They are placed gently in the heart. This is why tahajjud is not for everyone, not because Allah withholds mercy, but because the night is intimate. Daylight is open to all, but the night is selective. It is reserved for hearts Allah wants close. If you have ever been awakened in the darkness, understand this clearly. You were remembered. Allah never wakes a heart without purpose. He wakes you because there is something waiting for you: mercy, forgiveness, clarity, healing, protection, or a door you have been pushing against for far too long. Some doors in life do not open through effort, strategy, or persistence. They are not doors of force. They are doors of surrender. Ibn Arabi teaches that there are matters Allah gives only to those who seek Him when the world sleeps. Destinies shift quietly in the night. Knots loosen without announcement. Paths realign without noise. This is why after tahajjud, the heart often feels light before anything outward changes. That lightness is not emotion. It is a sign. Something has moved in the unseen. You may still face the same life in the morning, the same responsibilities, the same unanswered questions, but you walk into them differently, less fearful, less desperate, more anchored. Tahajjud does not remove struggle. It removes isolation. You are no longer carrying life alone. Ibn Arabi teaches that Tahajjud is not for the already righteous. It is for those Allah is making righteous. He wakes the hearts He wants to cleanse. He wakes the hearts He wants to elevate. He wakes the hearts He wants to protect. If you feel unworthy, yet you were awakened, this is not contradiction. It is mercy. Allah calls you not because you are perfect, but because you are reachable. And so the invitation remains simple. Start small. To RK letter to BFAHS. One whisper. One honest, ya Allah in the darkness. The night is not asking for eloquence. It is asking for sincerity. If you have ever wondered why the night keeps calling you back to silence, back to stillness, back to Him, perhaps now you understand. The real question is not whether Allah is listening. The question is, when the night calls again, will you answer? Have you ever noticed how the night calls you in ways the day never does? Quietly, personally, without pressure. Perhaps that pull you feel is not restlessness at all, but an invitation meant just for you. If this reflection resonated with your heart, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Voice of Sufism. Turn on the bell so you don't miss future reminders that speak to the quieter places within you. We'd love to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a moment in the night that changed how you understood prayer or yourself? Share your reflection in the comments and explore the related videos appearing on your screen for more spiritual insights and signs drawn from everyday life.